Oh hey, you're here. Did I ever tell you about that time where I seduced a dragon? Or a god? Or was it a god dragon? No. Jeez, it's just a story. Well, they're stupid stories. Okay, look, if you have a super lenient GM that lets you bed gods, then I guess go for it. I mean, Baldur's Gate 3 did it, and it's pretty successful. But I hate Gale, so eh. Okay, let's play this theoretical game. Let's say you bed Tiamat. Now what? You're gonna live the rest of your life as her plaything? No. So then you escape? Tiamat's not gonna be pretty happy with you. So she chases you down and places a heavy enchantment on you so that all of your charms are totally reversed, flipped on their head. Now, that's starting to sound like an interesting character. That's right, people. Today, we're building the Reverse Bard. This is a bard that instead of seducing everyone they meet, gets seduced by everyone they meet. Mechanically, this is how I think it's going to work. We're going to have the charmed condition by every living creature we encounter. And just a refresher on the charmed condition, this is what it says. A charmed creature can't attack the charmer or target the charmer with harmful abilities or magical effects. Also, they have advantage on social interactions with you, so you might not make the best party face. Or you'll make for a very memorable party face. For this character, some part of them deep down knows they're being charmed, and that enemy is actually still their enemy. They just can't bring themselves to attack them. That bullet's back ridges look so cool. How could you break them? Or those wriggly eye stalks remind you of your pet octopus growing up. How could you hurt your pet octopus? Hopefully you can have some fun reasoning your way out of harming anything. Now, if we can't attack and we can't debuff our enemies, that really puts a lot of restrictions on what we can do during combat. Of course, there are some potential workarounds, even things like summoning creatures. If you can get them to attack the enemy, is that breaking the charmed condition? In my mind, I think so. I don't think that follows the spirit of it, so I'm going to avoid that. This build, we're going to go pure buffs. And we're going to be a true pacifist character. Typically, I think pacifist characters have 3 problems. First one is that there's not a lot of great ways to contribute in combat without attacking, especially at low levels. At higher levels, you get spells and enough spell slots that you can spam abilities that don't do any damage. But at lower levels, just using the help action every turn doesn't actually help that much, and it gets pretty boring. And with you dealing no damage, your party might really feel that dead weight, especially if they don't have heavy damage dealers. The second big problem I see with pacifist characters is they can be so annoying to be around, especially if you have that vegan type pacifist character that's trying to enforce their way of life on everybody. In D&D, combat is one of the main pillars. It's one of the main reasons the game was invented, and that's what people look forward to. If your character is trying to get around all that, it can be really annoying really fast. The third problem with pacifists that I see is that it's kind of a moral problem. If you are going around holding down your enemies while your allies beat them up, are you really a pacifist? And how can you justify that? And at what point does this break? I feel like having this kind of pacifism for a short term makes sense as your character tries to figure themselves out. Now, this might not be a problem for everybody, but if there's no resolution for it or no real driver behind it, it makes the character feel cheap and fake. I think this character can overcome the pacifist issues because of the character concept and also some of the design choices we're going to make. So, one, in combat, I think it's going to be a lot more interesting. There's going to be more options and variants to what we're going to do each combat, even at a low level. Regarding playstyle, they're not going to enforce their pacifist vision on everybody because they don't even truly feel it deep down. And lastly, with their morals, there's again not really much of a conflict because they're magically enchanted, so they don't really have a choice and they're trying to get over it. For race, almost anything works, but for our story, we've been magically altered by Tiamat to turn our charm on its head. So maybe once we were a beautiful elf, but now we've been cursed into a shrunken, shriveled reptilian body, just to remind us of our old lover that we've lost. So for us, I'm gonna go Turtle. Also, there could be a fun combo in here that I want to see. For our starting class, we have to go Bard. That's the story. We get Bardic Inspiration, which means we can hand out a d6 to our allies, and they can use that when they have an attack roll, an ability check, or a saving throw. It'll be a great way to buff our allies in combat, if they ever remember to use it. Then we continue along Bard for 3 more levels. For the subclass, we're going to go College of Spirits. This was introduced in Ravenloft, and it's actually a really flavorful and cool subclass, but I've always avoided it for 2 reasons. The first reason is that the Bardic Inspiration ability they get here is actually randomized, so you can't actually choose what's going to happen. And I feel like that can be difficult to deal with. The second is that it takes an action to implement. And usually in builds, we don't have a lot of actions to spare. But in this build, those 2 problems actually become strengths because it adds some randomness so that every encounter is a little different. Also, we have a lot of actions to spare, so it's a great combo. Now let me go over how this Bardic Inspiration works. First, use a bonus action to expend a Bardic Inspiration, and then you roll that Bardic Inspiration on a table. Whatever number you get is the ability that you'll be able to use. You use that as an action, and then once it's used, you have to recharge it again using another bonus action and a Bardic Inspiration. Let me quickly go over the list of options that we've got here. If we roll a 1 on the dice, we have Tail of the Clever Animal, which gives them bonuses to their Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma checks. Obviously, this is an out-of-combat one, so if we roll this during combat, it's going to be not great. If we roll a 2, Tail of the Renowned Duelist, you make a melee spell attack. For us, we're charmed, so we actually can't use that. 3 is Tail of the Runaway. This one's really cool. So somebody can teleport using their reaction, and then they can also choose a bunch of other creatures to teleport as well. It's kind of like a scatter spell, which is fantastic. 5th is Tales of the Avenger. You target somebody, and for the next 1 minute, anybody that hits them with a melee attack ends up taking force damage. Kind of like a bargain Armor of Agathis. Even though it can damage enemies, we are targeting our allies with it. So this one actually does work, and it can deal damage. 7th is Tales of the Beguiler. This one's pretty awesome, but unfortunately we can't use it since we're a pacifist. And then 8, which is the last one we'll be getting up to, is that we choose somebody, they turn invisible until the end of their next turn, or until it hits someone with an attack. If they hit someone with an attack, that person also takes extra damage, and they're frightened of the person. It's pretty great because the ally is invisible, so that attack is going to have advantage. Then, when they hit them, the enemy doesn't even need to make a save to be frightened. They're just frightened if they are hit. And since they have advantage, it's going to be pretty likely that they have frightened that enemy. So between these 8 options, there are 2 of them that we can't use if we are fully pacifist, which is unfortunate. But if you're playing a less restrictive build, then this will be even better. Now for our last level before level 5, we're going to take 1 level of Peace Cleric. I could really see an argument for Order Cleric here, because we can then use our allies to make attacks, but 1, we're a pacifist, and 2, I really want the Emboldened Bond feature that Peace Clerics get. Emboldened Bond is basically a bless spell that's concentration free, but it only accounts for the first roll of every turn. Since it's very rare for an enemy to force us to make multiple saving throws on 1 turn, we are essentially giving them a plus d4 to all of their saving throws. And then, as a cleric, we get access to the Bless spell, which is something that we are definitely going to be using. The reason I want Emboldened Bond and Bless, and yes, they do stack, is that I feel like because we have been enchanted by Tiamat, we're going to do our best to make sure our teammates avoid anything like that in the future. The goal of our character is to make sure that our team never fails a saving throw, and I feel like you'll be a great boon to the team. Right now, we have 3 ways of helping those saving throws: Emboldened Bond, Bless, and Bardic Inspiration. So if we really want to help someone save, they're going to get a d8 and 2 d4s added to that saving throw. Okay, now we're level 5, and this is where I begin to do a tactics report. I also talk about damage, control, and durability. For tactics, on our first turn, we can cast Bless with our action, bonus action, Emboldened Bond, and we're going to have those up the entire encounter. For the next 2 turns, we'll use Tales from Beyond. That's the College of Spirits ability we just talked about. And of course, we're going to have to use a bonus action to replenish it as well. And then at some point in the combat, if one of our frontliners are being hurt, we can run in, bonus action to Sanctuary them, and then action to withdraw into our shell. This is something that Turtles can do, and it gives them a +4 to their AC. So the enemy either has to make a save to attack the hurt person, or they have to attack us with 23 AC. That's what I call being stuck between a shell and a hard place. For damage, with using Tales from Beyond, we can actually get some damage output. We end up doing 1.35 damage per round, which is obviously super low, but we're a pacifist, so pretty good. That ends up being 2.6% of a deadly encounter. You are really going to need your allies to deal out the damage. It would be great if you had someone like a Great Weapon Master Fighter on your team that they could really take advantage of the bonuses to their attack rolls that you're giving them. For control, the way I measure it is I measure in percents of unconscious, the unconscious condition. If we're doing 100 control per round, that means it's the equivalent control of knocking one character out unconscious every turn. For us, doing all the things we just talked about, we're going to be doing 63.5 control per round, and so that's pretty good. For durability, if everybody in the encounter is attacking us, we could last 1.5 rounds. That's pretty sturdy. We've got low HP, but we have pretty good AC. Alright, moving on from level 5, we take one more level of Bard, and that was going to give us Font of Inspiration. Essentially, this lets us have our Bardic Inspirations come back on a short rest. It's a very useful ability, and we're going to take full advantage of that. Also, we get level 3 Bard spells, which can be good options. Some potential concentration spells we want to use besides Bless might be Warding Wind if there's a lot of ranged enemies, Plant Growth if there are people far away and they have to make their way through the plants to reach us, or we could use Intellect Fortress if we know we're going to have to make some really strong saves against our Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma. Maybe something like Mind Flayers. You definitely could go more Bard or more Cleric and have a lot of great buffing options and ways to contribute in combat and outside of combat. But for us, Artificer gives some unique abilities that I'm going to talk about in a second. So Artificer 1, we're going to get some additional spells. So we can pick up Sanctuary here and use it based on our intelligence instead. We can also pick up Absorb Elements, and that's great. Then at Artificer 2, we get Artificer Infusions. These are fantastic ways to buff our team, or even boost our own defense if we have to. Things like Mind Sharpener can ensure that our main caster never loses their concentration. Enhanced Weapon, Enhanced Defense, these are great things to give out to your party members and have them have an additional boost in combat. For Artificer 3, we're going to take the Artillerist subclass. Now the Artillerist is basically like the gunner subclass. They can create a little gun that can run around and shoot people. And that's not helpful for us if we can't attack people. But there is one gun that will grant temporary hit points every round using a bonus action. And that is very strong. We are looking to ensure that our allies never fail their saving throws, but we also can use this to boost their HP to help them from going down at all. Artillerists also get some additional spells, and the main one here is Shield. Now at level 9, it's time for another tactics report. So we're going to be having a pretty similar strategy. We'll Bless and Embolden Bond on our first turn, and then on our second turn, we will summon our Eldritch Cannon, and we'll activate that as a bonus action to provide temp HP to our whole team. From there, we can do Tales from Beyond, and then hide in our shell for a little bit. Using these tactics, we again do negligible damage, and that's fine. Our control per round has gone up a little bit to 65, but our main benefit here is that we are granting a lot of temporary HP. Now, our durability has increased quite a lot. We also have the shield spell, so that'll help us a little bit, but if we were to have a deadly encounter target us with all of their attacks, we would last 2.8 rounds, almost 3 whole rounds of tanking. That's really good. So we're making sure our team never fails their saves, and we are keeping them alive much longer. I think we're contributing to battle quite a lot. And then who knows what Tales from Beyond is going to give us. I do want to say, one potential good strategy for using the Eldritch Cannon for temp HP would be just to summon it and activate it until everybody has the max temp HP they can, and then just dismiss it. So you can then go into battle with that full temp HP. For levels 10 to 13, we're going to continue along Artificer, and we're going to pick up some useful abilities and some maybe not so useful abilities, especially in the Artillerist subclass, since we can't attack. The first big one is that at Artificer 5, we get second level Artificer spells, and the standout to me is Vortex Warp. I just love Vortex Warp. It's such a good spell. It lets you teleport an ally to wherever they want to go. Your barbarian's too far, you just move them up. Or someone's stuck in a wall of force, you can teleport them out. We're also going to get an ASI, and we're just going to boost our intelligence. At level 7, we're going to add the Artificer ability, Flash of Genius. This is a pretty cool ability. It's a reaction to add your intelligence modifier to somebody's ability check or saving throw. Obviously for us, we're going saving throw. Right now we have a +4 to our intelligence, so we're going to end up using our reaction to give a +4 to a saving throw when they really need it. So with our Bless, our Emboldened Bond, our Bardic Inspiration, and the Flash of Genius, we have 4 ways to boost our allies' saving throws. If we get them all off, which is possible, we'd have a minimum of +7 to their saving throw and a maximum of a +20. Yikes! Now at level 13, our Tactics report, we're doing kind of more of the same thing, but now we have a couple other options. We have our Flash of Genius reaction we can use. We also have our Vortex Warp. So here, we can kind of mix and match as we go. Since we've got more options, we might end up using Tales from Beyond less. This means before battle, we can hopefully give out a bunch of Bardic Inspirations and save our bonus actions in combat for our Eldritch Cannon. For me, probably the strategy would be use 1 Bardic Inspiration for Tales from Beyond and see what that gets me. If it's something good for combat, I'll save it and build a strategy around that, and then give out a couple Bardic Inspirations before a battle starts. In the example here, I'm using Intellect Fortress instead of Bless, so this actually has a little bit less control, but it could be really useful in certain fights. Here, our control is 60 instead of 65, so it's gone down a little bit, but our durability has decreased, and monsters are doing more damage now, and our HP is scaling very slowly. So now we only last 2.2 rounds, which is still quite good, but not at the level it was. I really wish we could have gotten more con in our stats, but because we are multi-classed, we end up having to spread our stats a lot more. From levels 14 to 17, we continue along the Artificer path. There's a couple of good options here that I'd like to pick up. One is that we get boosts to our infusions. At level 10, all of our enhanced weapon, enhanced defense go up, and we get access to really cool things like winged boots. Probably one of the best infusions in the game. This basically gives a character a fly speed. The last thing that I really want is our spell storing item. Spell storing item is one of the coolest Artificer abilities. What it does is you can store an Artificer level 1 or 2 spell inside an item, and then someone else can cast them. They can cast it a number of times equal to your intelligence modifier times 2. Right now we have a +4, so they could store something in there and cast it 8 times. That's fantastic. So good that I would even want to pick up a familiar that we could have them cast it for us. So at the ASI we get here at Artificer 8, I'm going to suggest we pick up something like Magic Initiate to get the Find Familiar spell. Then our familiar can fly around the battlefield and use something like Vortex Warp every single turn in combat to move people where they need to go, if they need it. You can't go wrong with something like Invisibility too. If someone's getting targeted, you could just turn them invisible and they could run away, or you could even just turn your tank invisible at the end of each turn. That way, they're much less likely to get hit. For me though, I'm just gonna go with Vortex Warp. Maybe we don't need that much movement, but it never hurts just to have it in case. We also get 3rd level Artificer spells at Artificer 9. This gives us access to the Haste spell, and we wouldn't be a buff build if we never got the Haste spell. So we Haste, Emboldened Bond, and then we can use our reaction to do a Flash of Genius if someone needs a saving throw, and then our familiar can use Vortex Warp from the spell storing item. We'll do similar things, summon our Eldritch Cannon, grant temp HP, give Bardic Inspiration, Tales from Beyond if we need to, or also just do lesser restorations if it ever comes up, healing words, anything like that to support the team. We have a lot of great options now here at level 17. We can defend our team from almost anything coming our way. This character is very well rounded and is going to be a fantastic addition to any team that already has good damage output. You know, playing Baldur's Gate 3, you realize how useful the Bless spell is, and this is basically Bless times 10. So yeah, I think it's worth giving up 1 slot in your party to give all your other characters such good boosts. So in this tactics report, we have a control of 86.6, which is quite high. We only are lasting though 1.7 rounds of a deadly encounter. So our durability has gone down quite a bit. Maybe it would be worth it to pick up Resilient Con or to grab the Tough Feat instead of getting a familiar if we're feeling pretty confident with our positioning. So here's our final chart for what our character looks like at level 17. And here is a summary of what our character's career is. This is where we're going to end our build today. If we want to continue on to 20, taking more Bard or Artificer levels, I think both would be good options. But I hope people can see the power of the Reverse Bard, and even if you're charmed by all of your enemies, you can still contribute massively to the team. And maybe this is actually a viable pacifist build that won't make the team want to pull their hair out. So I hope that my story is a cautionary one for future generations. They learn that they shouldn't attempt to seduce a dragon or a god, or both. But I hope that it was a fun time and that you enjoyed unoptimizing D&D with me, and I'll see you again next time.